All right, let's get into our first discussion now. The United Labour Congress of Nigeria began its nationwide strike on Monday.
The union is down in tools over several issues, some of which are government's failure to register the union, failure to address the challenges of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, deplorable state of Nigerian roads, minimum wage increase, among other demands. The president of the union, Joe Ajere, is also demanding the immediate payment of all salary arrears owed Nigerian workers at all levels of government without exception.
Government have been sending negative signals, calling the strike illegal and all that. For us, we feel that is wrong. The needful is for government to, call for a meeting. Let us sit down and look at the issues. Issue of registration, the grievances, and the complaints we have raised. We believe that they can be looked into. And of course, when that is done, we'll be interested to continue the action. The action will certainly be called off. I have to say that it's a right time that things are done properly in this nation, in this country. That is why we are where we are today.
We've immediately commenced the industrial action as early as possible this morning. All the branches of NUPENG has been directed to join the action. And as I'm talking to you right now, no lifting of petroleum products anywhere across the Federation, based on the directive of United Labour Congress. And it is only United Labour Congress has also the authority to give us a counter-directive.
All right, that was Korodo, the chairman in this region.
Lagos, yeah. All
right, now joining us is the Publicity Secretary, Campaign for Democratic and Workers' Rights, Comrade Chinedu Bosa. Comrade, it's good to have you join us.
Good to have you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Right, make us understand, at this point where we were thinking that a lot of comments from people saying that the government has succeeded in somehow making the labor unions not to be as effective as they are supposed to be. And then within the union themselves, there's so much factionalization. How does this cater for the rights of workers, really?
Obviously, the factionalization is affecting the workers in various workplaces. It's affecting the workers in various spheres of workplaces. And as far as we are concerned, it is unhealthy for workers, for Nigerian workers. Because if you remember May last year, when they had the general strike called by the Nigerian Labour Congress, it was also not too effective because of the inadequate mobilization of the Nigerian masses. And also we are having another general strike called by the United Labour Congress that is also not properly mobilized. Understand? That properly mobilized. Be that as it may, the fact remains that you leave the messenger and you look at the message. The demands are demands every Nigerian must support, must join in activating that strike. But the reality on ground is that we are also not too happy with the response coming from the Nigerian Labour Congress. I mean, joining the federal government, calling it an illegal strike.
Is it not an illegal strike?
It's not an illegal strike. Okay. It's not an illegal strike. The relevant section of the Trade Union Act they are citing is also contravening Section 40 of the 1999 Constitution. Section 35, subsection 1B, that they are relying on, will never make another trade union federation to come into being in Nigeria, where you are now setting conditions that are undemocratic. You are saying that there must be at least 12 or more unions that are not even, they were not members of another trade union center or trade union federation. That is undemocratic, and we do not support that. So as a people, as an organization, no matter how small they are, no matter how big they are, they have a right to a trade union federation or trade union center. Don't forget, when the Meta Union in South Africa was expelled just recently, they formed, almost immediately, they formed the trade union federation. You understand? Now they have about 700,000 members. You understand? So where are we looking up to if we say a strike is illegal? You see that even a paper seller association cannot raise demand. You understand? You see that just one union cannot go on strike. We just saw ASU strike. We are seeing a number of strikes, NASU, SANU, and the rest of them all. So they have a right to strike.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, I was about to ask you if your group was affiliated to United Labour Congress.
We are not affiliated.
Okay.
We are a pro-labor organization.
All right.
We were not even informed about the strike.
Yeah,
and that is why that is worrisome. Okay. But however, we support the demands. For instance, the demand for review of the privatization of the power sector. Obviously, it has failed. Everybody knows that. A situation whereby even the discourse are rejecting power. Between 13th of August to 20th of August, they rejected 8,300 megawatts. And we are talking about a situation whereby even the one generated, you understand, is not even enough for Nigerians. Yet alone, you are rejecting power just because you want to make profits. So we support that demand. In fact, we want to even stretch their demands forward. That would need a nationalization of that sector under workers and consumers control and management.
All right. Yeah. It seems that it's more of politics, really, when you look at the United Labour, the formation of the United Labour Congress and the matters that made it come to bear, really, in the country, putting to mind the election between Joe Ajaero and Ayuba Wabba. Exactly. So would you say, really, it's just about this new group now, United Labour Congress, coming out to prove to the government that it has the clout to pull many workers to its side, and then that it controls the core organizations that run the sector, the most active sectors in Nigerian economy? Is it about the show of force, the show of power, or genuinely, really, apart from the issues involved? Because it seems to be like that for many people.
Yes, what brought about the factionalization was the leadership posture at the level of the Nigerian Labour Congress in 2015. For us, that wouldn't have been the issue, because we would have, what we wanted is a situation whereby the different union leaders will be separated on the basis of issues, not who occupies the position. So for us, it is unhealthy for us to have a factional leadership, a factional platform, because of leadership, who controls the leadership of the Nigerian Labour Congress or the Trade Union Center. But however, I want to look at the issues they are raising. And I don't think it's just for the show of force. If it were to be for the show of force alone, you understand, perhaps they don't even need a Trade Union Center, you understand, to even articulate that. They are also talking about issues that has to do with registration of their Trade Union Centers. They are talking about also issues that have to do with withdrawal of military at workplaces. Or, as we speak now, there are hundreds of armed soldiers and police at different workplaces. You understand? Harassing workers or intimidating workers, if you want to put it that way. So it is not just a show of force. It is also that they are fighting for their democratic rights to become a labor center. A right, I think, my organization thinks they have a right to. You understand? So to that extent, you understand, we are in support of the strike. We'll be issuing our statement this afternoon in support of the strike.
All right. Now, many of those demands are still demands that NLC had put forth in their some of their demands when they go on strike. And besides that, there are also demands that Nigerians would want. Talk about minimum wage, talk about state of roads, talk about salaries and all of that. These are things. But the point there is, ULC just came to be now just a few years.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
In all of this, has it exhausted the original procedure, the standard procedure of how to engage government before going on strike? Have they exhausted all of those?
Yes, according to their leadership, they have reached out to government. They have given a strike ultimatum. They have tried to discuss with government, but government is not ready to discuss with them. Like we also know presently, they say they are illegal organization and the rest of them. And so they don't want to even discuss with them. I am sure they must have exhausted that from the relation, our discussion with the leadership. They have exhausted all mechanisms or all processes that would make them arrive at this stage. They have done that. It is the government that is not listening to them. Like we all know, they don't listen to anybody. For instance, in last year general strike.
I cannot say that really.
Okay, sorry. In last year general strike, you forget that government also recognized the union. No, sorry, the faction. They called Ajaero to a meeting. They called Achese to a meeting. They were discussing with the leadership because they were not, the Ayuba leadership were not discussing with the government, or Wara, they didn't agree. So they were discussing on the committee on palliative. TVC also was in that kind of discussion for palliative instead of going on a general strike.
Was it not on the ground that Joe Ajero was the head of NUI and also a very senior member of the NLC at the time?
No, they have reached a level of factionalization at that time. Don't forget, they have factionalized. They became factionalized since I think March in 2015,
after the election.
After the election. So 1 year after, you understand, they couldn't reconcile, and that was the general strike we had called by Yajuba Waba faction, and so government was discussing with Joe Ajero faction. Understand? Now they are not recognizing them. It's double speak.
Okay, does it seem to you really that the government is just taking advantage of the factionalization and using the two factions as it pleases it? Because whenever NLCO calls a strike action or puts out a statement that is against the government, you'd see somehow the government more dancing to the tune of the ULC. Now, the Minister, Chris Ngige of Labour, saying that ULC is an illegal group at this time, and then NLC and TUC saying that the government should ignore the demands by ULC. So can we say really that these two groups now, NLC on one side, ULC on the other, are just pawns to the government?
The government is playing its cards very well. It's the usual divide and rule tactics. Tomorrow, I'm sure, if there's any other major struggle in this country that Ajero's ULC is not part of, they will call them for a discussion. You understand? So they are using faction, they are using one wing of the trade union movement against the other. It pays them because the trade union leaders, the trade union movement is divided as we speak. It's factionalized. And so it pays the government. It doesn't pay Nigerian workers. It doesn't pay the Nigerian working masses. Because in the final analysis, we are not going to have a strong union, a strong labor movement that could push the demand of the Nigerian people forward and force government to accede to those demands.
This is at the detriment of the
Nigerian
workers.
The workers, exactly.
It's just like when two elephants fight and the grass that suffers. That is what we are doing.
But within the NLC itself, does it not have avenues to settle disputes from election if at all there are any misgiving or grievances or dissatisfaction and all of that? Doesn't it have, in this constitution, doesn't it have modalities or modus operandi of how to settle all those kind of disputes from elections?
Yeah, they have, but from what we know, between March 2015 and now, or before ULC was created in December last year, you agree to an extent that they try to negotiate discourse. In fact, they called in the veterans. Sumonu led that discussion to see how well they can accommodate the both factions into one trade union center. They had a series of meetings, but they could not reconcile. Do you understand? So it has become irreconcilable from their own viewpoint, not from our own viewpoint, because I don't see anything that cannot be reconciled from what we have seen so far. That are the issues, because it's just the issues of leadership. It's not issues that have to do with tactics or issues that have to do with strategy on how to defend workers' rights. It is just who holds the affairs, terms of affairs of the trade union center. And so, it's, like I said before, it's unhealthy for Nigerian workers. A lot are happening in factories. A lot are happening in workplaces. As we speak, in the last one decade, casualization and contract staffing has increased from 60% to about 72% as we speak. Many workers are being converted from regularized status to contract staffing. And you know, it pays employers of labor because they pay less, they don't pay gratuity, they don't pay benefit at the end of the day. So it pays them. And so this kind of factionalization, this kind of bickering, this kind of infighting is not going to help. It's going to help either the government and to some extent even the employers of labor. And
even before the factionalization really of executives of labor unions in the country, it seemed that the unions were no longer as proactive as they were in the past, many years ago in the country, where they were always fighting the cause of the common worker in the country. They were always meeting with authorities and managements of companies and saying that you have to treat your workers right. Most of the time now, of course, many unions have been accused in the past, is that labor executives fight like this to get to the power, really, just to be able to get money into their own pockets for selfish interests and not for the welfare of workers.
Yeah, that is the truth of the matter. You have what we call the yellow unions currently, not all anyway. You have trade union leaders who have become aristocratic, self-serving. You have unions who even collect check-off dues in advance, as we speak. We have unions who look the other way even when workers receive as low as 15,000 below the minimum wage. You understand? So you have that on the ground. And the unions, even before now, have not been proactive. We have a sizable number of Nigerian workers who are not even part of the unions. So you have that problem across board, across the sectors of the economy. And so this is not the time for factionalization, this is not the time for infighting. Give or take, I don't say that every trade union must belong to a trade union center. Like I mentioned before, South Africa had two trade union federations as we speak. In 78, before 78, we used to have about 3-4 trade union centers, you understand? But that does not mean that we cannot have a common ground upon which we can defend workers' rights, defend workers' interests. If you go to the tradition of those days, in 1941, Paimodu led the agitation and strike. We saw a situation whereby that won some concessions for workers. At least we had minimum wage increased to 3 pence per day. And those unions were not recognized by the colonial masters, but they were forced to recognize those agitations and the demands are by them. And that is the tradition we want the trade unions to get into. Because for many people now, they feel that trade unionism has become a thing of career. It's not a thing of, defending the interests of the people. We still have some numbers of trade union, some of them who still defend, but they are in the minority as we speak. And it is high time the trade union leaders across board get back to the tradition of defending workers, not just workers.
We saw how the NLC election in 2015 went the way it did, and then another Congress came out of it.
Which one?
I'm saying the NLC election because of this selfish interest.
Okay. Obviously, that is inevitable when you don't have issue-driven assessment, issue-driven trade unionism. If you have that, that becomes secondary. Who occupies the position? Because if you are in there, you are not different from average worker. It's just like politics as we speak, where you have politicians emerge, and it has become so profitable to emerge as a leader. It's the most profitable business all over the world now to emerge as a leader in Nigeria. And you make so much money. You understand? It mirrors also. It replicates itself in the trade union movement. You understand? Because when you get to that level, you are closer to the government, closer to
resources,
employers of labor, to privileges and the rest of them. So we want a situation whereby an average, the trade unions are so democratic that even the rank and file determines what happens in the trade union. Until you have that, you are going to have this problem of factions. We are not done yet. It's possible in the coming period we may have more factions coming out, and which is unhealthy for workers and for the Nigerian people, because Nigerian people look up to the most organized platform in Nigeria, which is the trade union centers. They are the most organized, and if they are in this problem of disagreement, not based on issues, but based on who occupies the leadership position, it's a problem for
all right. Now that ULC has been formed and is even looking forward to registration, even though the government is not obliging that, are we seeing the room for reconciliation between it and NLC close? Is that what it means?
It's possible. It's possible for reconciliation to happen. That is if they are sincere about the issues on the ground, if they are sincere about those they represent, which are Nigerian workers and the Nigerian working people. If they are sincere, I see a situation whereby they can come together, but not just necessarily under a platform. You understand? Not just under a platform. Don't forget, you have different organizations, social, cultural. They're not on the same platform, but they still exist, and sometimes they collaborate with themselves, among themselves. So you can have, but for me, the challenge is how to they have a common ground based on issues that defend the workers' interest. I don't see why for a minimum wage, for instance, the ULC and the NLC will not have a template.
But even the figures they're demanding are different already.
Yes, 56, then 90,000. So they at this stage, they ought to have come to harmonization as to what are they presenting, because government will just sit back and say, well, you people are disagreeing, let's look at how things
until
go.
you reconcile, we'll talk about it.
And don't forget, the minimum wage ought to have come into being since January 2016.
Indeed.
You understand? 5 years have expired. And now, up till now, 2 years after, almost 2 years rather, we have not had a minimum wage. 18,000 cannot even take the average worker from the workplace to the next bus stop.
Indeed.
It's not possible.
All right, thank you very much, Comrade Chinedu Bosa, the Publicity Secretary of Campaign for Democratic and Workers' Rights. Thank you for the analysis of the issues.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you.